Mataconda77 very generously gave me a year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Atla Palani versus Jodah, Damia and Breya. Plenty of mana in that hand, we will certainly keep it. Obviously have a means of refilling our hand with the Skull Clamp as well, otherwise we would likely run out of cards in hand pretty quickly with that one. Draw into a Thornbite Staff, we'll get down the tap land in Mosswalk Bridge first of all. That is a hideaway card, and we're not going to cheat out anything too incredible there. Marauding Raptor could be an enabler later on. Yeah, we'll just go for the Marauding Raptor under that. I think we need 10 total power. Yeah, 10 total power on the board in order to pay green and throw that one out. Saw a Brainstorm from Damia and now throwing out a Mana Crypt. Oh, didn't notice that Breya suspended a Lotus Bloom as well. It's an Elemental Bond for us, nothing for us to do on turn 2. I'm not really interested in getting the Thornbite Staff out just to eat some removal, so we'll get out a Triome here. And that proves that this is an old deck. I've updated it a little bit but forgot to add the Triomes, so just a tap land then. Seeing Baral, Chief of Compliance, not sure what land that is, that's a Breeding Pool. Okay, and into a Marsh Flats as well, so save that in case we need a shuffle effect, throw down the command tower, and we'll play the Cultivate. The Temple of the False God is not going to punish us this game. General Ferris Rockerick from Breya. Baral swinging in towards us now during the combat phase. Demonic Tutor for Jodah. Alright, seeing a Seedborn Muse now. Are we just going to assume that Baral's holding up a bunch of counter magic? Okay, let's throw out Temple of the False God. Can maybe try to bait my opponent a little bit here. Let's go for Thornbite Staff. Do a little bit of setting up potentially before we go for Atla Palani. Yeah, we don't have any haste unfortunately, but that did come down pretty quickly, so we will try and throw out the Elemental Bond. And again, that came down really quickly as well, so it might be safe to assume that Damia doesn't have any counters. At least not any counters they want to use on us. The Lotus Bloom coming into play now, since it's been 3 turns. We are on turn 4 now, so they can tap and sacrifice that for 3 mana, which they do straight away for 3 blue mana. And that gets them into a Psymaster Thopterist. Then casting Breya, Ethereum Shaper into the Psymaster Thopterist, so they'll get a 4/4 Golem from the Rockerick, a Thopter from the Psy, and then it will come in with a couple of Thopters as well. So just like that, have a pretty damn good board state. And I think we can definitely assume that Damia doesn't have any counter magic now that they didn't counter the Breya. The 3/1 in towards the Jodah this time. Baral swinging in towards Jodah this time as well. Excellent, and now we see a Wrath of God, so once again testing for the counter magic, although argument to be made for Damia letting it happen here. Won't want to lose that Baral though. So yeah, really good board wipe against the Breya player. I'm very glad that I didn't cast out the commander previously. Now drawing into Secluded Courtyard, which is obviously a dinosaur land. Let's go for our commander here, I think, after that board wipe. Damia holding up priority there, but deciding to let it down. The Thornbite Staff will attach itself, and like I said before, we unfortunately don't have haste on Atla Palani. So let's play out the Skull Clamp, equip it to our commander, and we can just pass the turn. Audacious Reshapers, looking forward to playing that in Mishra over the next week or 2. Yeah, you'll probably see this just before the new set comes out. Mox Diamond from Damia, and then almost tapping out into Damia Sage of Stone, 3 cards in hand, and a Watery Grave held up. And seeing another commander, so the 3rd one in this turn cycle, Jodah Archmage Eternal hit in play. Okay, unfortunately just keep drawing into lands. I mean, we can at least do something as long as our commander stays in play. We can abuse the ability from Atla Palani with the Seedborn Muse, so yeah, I think it's just another tapped Shockland from the Bloodstained Maya, and we'll throw down the Seedborn Muse. And then we'll go for an activation on the Atla Palani. So making 1 egg token there, and we will untap our lands next turn, so might as well get in the tapped Shockland now. And untapping everything during every upkeep. Thanks to the Seedborn Muse, our opponent goes for a Cleansing Wildfire onto his own land, so he can search for a basic. I mean, you'd think you'd target your own land that you just tap for mana, but yeah, not sure what the plan is there. Oh, is this Yeah, that's an indestructible artifact land, alright, so that's literally a bit of mono red ramp there. That's really clever, I've never seen it used like that. So they can trip with that, and it's a rampant growth for them. Phyrexian Metamorph into play now. That is a copy of any creature, I think. Yeah, any creature on the battlefield, so could be Damia, could be Seaborn Muse. They decide on Damia, Sage of Stone. They've only got 3 cards left in hand. Alright, so let's go for 1 damage onto the egg token with the Thornbite Staff. That will cost us 2 mana to do that. And then we'll put the reveal from the egg on the stack first. We'll untap the Atla Palani, just in case we need to tap it down again for some reason. The board states can get surprisingly complicated with Atla Palani, so I'm not sure what could happen here, but I know the board states get really crazy, and that's one of the... yeah, I mean, that's one of the concerns with the most craziest board states that you can make in Atla Palani and Dinosaurs. The Polyraptor goes absolutely nuts. Cantrips us with the Elemental Bond. And of course, we draw into another land. That is a shock land, so we will tap down for an egg token again. And then we actually have enough power on board now to... yeah, thanks to the Skull Clamp, we have enough power on board for the Mosswalk Bridge, so let's try that. And the Polyraptor does have Enrage, so this is where the setup that I spoke about previously comes in this dealing 2 damage to things. Although this is when another creature enters, it's not when it enters. But it's still a setup piece anyway, so get that in without paying its mana cost. So once again, untapping with the Seaborn Muse. Argument to be made for me doing stuff during their upkeep before they draw a bunch of cards and potentially do something about our board here, but I'll force them to use it at instant speed, maybe hold up interaction and force them to use it during their turn. So obviously back up to 7 in hand, they skip their draw step and go straight through to the first main. Seeing a Chromatic Lantern. Okay, and the blue player is holding up 7 mana and just passing through the turns, so probably safe to say that that is a Cyclonic Rift. We will shoot the egg token with the Thornbite Staff again, and Atla Palani will be untapped thanks to the Thornbite Staff seeing something die. Not to mention getting the egg trigger token from the Atla Palani as well, of course. And this is where the Damia has chance to do something to us if he wishes. If Damia messes with us too much, I don't mind blowing up those rocks over there. Okay, a reality shift going onto the Atla Palani, so the egg token's going to die and we're not going to get a trigger here. And we'll test them for counter magic next turn. They're down to 4 cards again already. A creature does enter the battlefield in the form of a manifest creature. That is a Soul Ring that they flipped into. And the Marauding Raptor sees that and is going to deal some damage here. So the Soul Ring gets blown up by the Marauding Raptor. The egg goes down and doesn't do anything. Jodah throwing out a 5 mana Omniscience. And 6 cards in hand over there. We'll see how much damage you can do with it. Solemn Simulacrum first of all. Throwing out the Fist of Suns for a bit of redundancy here. We've seen the Great Henge and the Clockwork Servant coming into play. That will cantrip them, get a plus counter on it, so they'll go up to 3 cards in hand. Bit of a funny one to have Clockwork Servant in the deck when you've got Omniscience, but anyway, they are cantripping these creatures, at least Ornithopter of Paradise into play. Then seeing a Mystic Forge, not sure how many colourless creatures and spells they're going to have in the deck if we've seen stuff like Omniscience and the Great Henge, but we shall soon find out here. Doesn't look as though they are doing anything off the top. Well, my intention was to punish the Damia player for focusing on us a little bit there by going for the Fiery Confluence onto their stuff, but I'd want to blow up this Damia, and now I'd want to get rid of the Great Henge and Mystic Forge probably, so I think I'll just concentrate on getting out Atla Palani again and removing the Summoning Sickness from that. Spark Double into play now. Copy of a creature or planeswalker you control. So once again we'll cantrip, they go back up to 2 cards. And that came down as a copy of the Solemn Simulacrum. Doing the right thing in putting Solemn Simulacrum on the stack first to pull a basic out of the deck makes it ever so slightly lower of a chance that you will pull into a basic off the Great Henge. I'm sure they don't want to be drawing into lands at this point. Using some mana from the Mystic Forge, exiling the top card of their library. I thought they'd gone through to the end step, but still playing in the second main. They obviously know what they're drawing into with the Great Henge, which is why they exiled it off the top. Not sure if we can see it. And all that glitters is what they got rid of. Yeah, people rave about Mystic Forge as though they absolutely love it, but I think there's very, very few decks that it will actually work in. I've just put it in the Urza Battlethopter deck because that's all colourless. And I expect it to do a hell of a lot of work there, but in decks where you're running like the Great Henge and Omniscience and all that glitters, and then a third of your deck is lands anyway that you can't make use of it with, you're just really throwing hurdles in front of yourself. I obviously don't know the person's deck, but you do have to be careful with Mystic Forge. It's not an auto-include. We draw into Guardian Project, which we... Yeah, it's a shame we don't have that in play before the Atla Palani. I think we do just need to get down our commander again here. Everyone should be focusing on the Jodah player at this point, I think, although the two Damia players aren't to be forgotten about either. So I'll throw out the Atla Palani again. Didn't trigger the Skull Clamp previously because it did get exiled by the reality shift. Marauding Raptor going to deal 2 damage to it, which doesn't matter thanks to its 3 toughness. Thornbite Staff goes on there as well. Oh, and I forgot, this makes creature spells cost 1 less, so yeah, we can actually get down the Guardian Project here. It means ignoring the Skull Clamp for a while, but yeah, okay. Let's get in a basic and we'll throw down the Guardian Project. Really should have done that before. My commander obviously missed out on a card draw there, but like I said, forgot about the ramp here. Can't do anything at instant speed at the moment, thanks to having not the best draws. Yeah, up against Death Touchers and bigger creatures. Best to just pass the turn here, I think. Breya drawing up to the 7 card mark again. And throwing down a Magsynth Wellspring ready to be sacrificed to the Audacious Reshapers. And they do sacrifice the Magsynth Wellspring, can search for another basic, and they're going to reveal cards and get a free artifact. And I think, yep, that was an artifact land they got, so continuing to ramp a Silver Bluff Bridge. And we see a Bronze Guardian now giving all of their artifacts Ward 2. Damia throwing down an Emry, Lurker of the Lock. And milling with that, a Pull from Tomorrow, a couple of basics, and a Vohar. Now 8 mana being held up by the Damia, 5 cards in hand. Mystic Forge being activated again on Jodah's turn. Surprisingly, the Omniscience has stayed in play through 2 Damia players' turns. Exile the Terminate off the top with that, by the way. Once again, proving that instead of Mystic Forge, you could play Future Sight. That would be a much better spell than Mystic Forge, I think. We now see Nevinrel's Disc, so that can be held over everyone's head. Alright, managing to get round the table again with Atla Palani intact, and again a land. Ugh. Right, well at least we can make an egg here. Not going to get chance, I didn't realise about this Nombo actually, not going to get chance to Skull Clamp it thanks to the Marauding Raptor. I mean, it is a kind of sack outlet, so I have to be grateful for it, but would like to be Skull Clamping here really. Anyway, the Atla Palani will get untapped, and we kind of combo off here anyway. So, we'll put Marauding Raptor on the stack first. We got into Regisaur Alpha, so that gives dinosaurs haste. Whenever it enters the battlefield, make a 3/3 dinosaur with trample, so we could Skull Clamp that. It will only have 2 toughness effectively. We're going to draw from Guardian Project and Elemental Bond though, so that's good. Might not need to rely on Skull Clamp. The dinosaur token does get shocked, like I said, and that triggers the Elemental Bond as well. Once again, drawing into a land to start things off. Wow, just keep drawing into lands. It's going to be one of those games, isn't it? So let's go for an activation on Atla Palani again. And we're just going to do that whole thing all over again, I imagine. The egg token gets shocked. Our Atla Palani gets untapped. And that time it brought in a Forerunner of the Empire. And we may have it deal 1 damage to each creature. I'm not interested in that, simply because I don't want to lose this thing without using Skull Clamp on it. Could get another Polyraptor with that. Suppose I should have seen what I draw into with the Guardian Project first, but yeah, I'll forego this for now. Right, how many is that now? 5 lands in a row? Tell you what, let's just go for the Skull Clamp now onto the dinosaur token so that we're not held off by any more, what's the ability called, enrage triggers. Skull Clamp draws us 2 cards. The untap from Atla Palani is on the stack again because it saw that token die, so might as well go for the tap down ability now. Egg comes down, Marauding Raptor eats it, so now we've got 2 untaps on the stack. We'll let the first one resolve and then can tap it down again because we're going to get another untap trigger here, which actually we're not going to be able to make use of now because we don't have the mana for Atla Palani. Okay, so this one is Goring Ceratops. When it attacks other creatures you control, gain double strike until the end of the turn. And Forerunner of the Empire is going to trigger again. Not stacking the triggers very well here. Another sack outlet in Goblin Bombardment is good to have in hand. We can have it deal damage to each creature, is this? Oh, it'll kill itself, so no, that's a no to that again. Not doing very well with the Polyraptor, not as well as we could be. Alright, Harmonic Prodigy actually starting to get into stuff now. Was a worthwhile turn, even if we had to use it to clear all the lands off the top. Get another egg trigger on the stack to resolve. And this time get ourselves into a Raging Sword Tooth. Deals 1 damage to each other creature, so this thing's gonna die regardless. Okay, drawing into a 1000-year Elixir and a Generous Gift, which will be handy if we keep the Seaborn Muse in play. This assumes there's no Cyclonic Rift. Say no to the Forerunner of Empires, because I don't want to lose the Rage Assault Alpha. We are going to lose the Goring Ceratops here, annoyingly. I have always debated about Marauding Raptor being in the deck because it is a choiceless version of damage and you can lose creatures. We get another Polyraptor regardless here. Get more untapped triggers from Atla Palani, which we can't make use of here. And we actually go accidentally infinite here, don't we? We do have haste on all of our stuff. I actually totally forgot about this. So yeah, the Polyraptor and the Marauding Raptor go infinite, and we're going to draw an infinite amount of cards and deck ourselves. So maybe the Marauding Raptor not the cleverest thing to have in this deck after all. Well, it'll be fun to see this go off anyway. We already see a player scoop. I think that the Damia player might have an answer to this, so yeah, I don't think they should scoop, because we actually can't break the loop here. If we had the Goblin Bombardment in play, we could have sacrificed this thing to keep it from doing this. But yeah, I mean, you saw the draws that I made here. They were just horrific, so had to go all in on the Atla Palani. And yeah, as you remember me saying before, the Polyraptor can do some pretty crazy things, and the board states can get pretty insane. You just stumble into accidental combos, apparently. Alright, so we can see what happens here. If we had a sack outlet, then like I said before, we'd be able to get rid of this. But we end up with a bajillion Polyraptor creature tokens currently with haste, and they are 5/5s. Would have double strike if we hadn't accidentally killed this thing. And we've got, how many cards do we have in hand now? 40 cards in hand at the moment. So I'll just scoop it up there, and we'll see who wins between these two. Vamp Tutor during the upkeep for the Damia player before drawing the cards. 4 cards in hand at the moment. Jodah actually stands to suffer more from a Wrath from the Nevinrail's Disc, actually, so I mean, they're really just eager to get into card draw off the top of their library. Although they can't really cast card draw off the top of their library with Mystic Forge, so yeah, pretty tricky spot there. A Buried Alive now, another tutor from the Damia player. And there we see a Phage the Untouchable. It would be funny if they reanimated that. Gravebreaker Lamia in the bin, and a Hope of Gyra Port is as well. And then reanimating the Phage. Do you have a counter for a trigger? Okay, and they just commit suicide, so, I mean, anything said in the chat there? Well, apparently not, didn't say anything in the chat. I think he might have forgotten about Phage the Untouchable doing that. Yeah, really not sure. Anyway, this was a totally dumb and goofy game. Just throwing out something before the Brothers' War hits, which, when you're seeing this, it'll probably be within the next day or two. So hopefully you all look forward to that. You can let me know which commanders you'd like to see from the new set in the comment section. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.